Come one, come all. It's time to grow. Welcome to the Dorian Adams Motivation Show. This is where we focus on faith, family, friends, finance, and fitness. Today's topic, we're going to be going over a word called orthodoxy. And but without further ado, let me just ask you guys if you guys will allow me to introduce or welcome the creator into the conversation, into the discussion, because I guarantee you, I'm not trying to talk to fix nobody. I'm not trying to do none of that, but I know that us having discussions and discoveries about ourselves, what we think, what we're going through, how we do what we do, is ultimately his plan. And that's just that's my position. But let's get off into it. I took a note. I was talking to a brother, Tim, actually, and I was asking him like what he feel like a topic would be. He didn't really have nothing, but it's like within 5 seconds we started talking about orthodoxy, right? And then he laid out some more stuff that goes with it. And this is what he said. Where is it? Oh, I took a picture of it. Okay. So what he said was, you have orthodoxy, orthoproxy, and orthopatty. And he says, what do you believe? How do you practice it? And what are the experiences that come as a part of that? And that's just going back to the specific note that he wrote down while we was having the conversation. The thing about that for me, it blew me away that in that short moment of us having just a basic candid discussion, I learned something, right? I learned a 3-set understanding of how I can now look at the word orthodox or orthodoxy in another way. And that automatically, for me, where I'm at in life, I'm like, dude, I got to learn more. I got to dive in. So I was like, well, that need to be the discussion of the call, right? So if y'all would, man, I'm gonna call on you, Tim, man, to lead us into that and just hit some points on it, because it could be whatever, but I want you to, introduce it to us, bro.
Well, good evening, brothers. It's interesting because I'm looking at that picture behind Bags's, and I don't know, I just might be the only person who was alive when Malcolm X was alive. I was alive when Martin Luther King was alive. And so I was living in New York. And of course, I, as a kid, wanted to be a Muslim because, I identified with that whole movement. I come from the Marcus Garvey movement. My grandfather's from Barbados, and he had come over in the 1900s, and Marcus Garvey at the same time from Jamaica. And so, of course, these were prominent people who pretty much ruled Brooklyn, the United Negro Improvement Association. And so as a young kid, I started to shape my doctrine from, these external experiences, just watching, Malcolm X, watching Martin Luther King, listening to the messages and the spirits of those messages. And that began to shape my doctrine of what I believe. And of course, as a kid, like I said, I wanted to be a part of the Nation of Islam. Because I could identify with that as a New York kid. As I grew and matured, and as I studied, and as I got more knowledge, I began to shift in my understanding because, of course, there was one aspect of that plight that just wasn't fitting for me, and that was after all this was said and done, after everything on this earth was over. After all the achievements was done, what happens next after? Mm-hmm. What is the plan after? Is it over? Is that it? And Islam couldn't answer that question for me. And I began to really study African traditional religions, African traditional faiths. And I don't know if any of you brothers have ever gone beyond the uh, Israeli move when Moses was called. I don't know if you've gone beyond any of those other Hebrew or Messianic movements, but it's interesting when you look at Genesis, you would discover a whole bunch of folks who lived average age of 1100 years old way before Noah ever came on the scene. Before Noah ever was called to build an ark, there was a civilization of folks, and when you read it names them all. This one lived 100 and something and begat so and so, and this one lived to be 900 and then he died, and then this one lived to be 300 and begat so and so, and then that one lived to be 800 something, and all of this existed before we knew anything about Noah. And so I wanted to know, what kind of faith was that? What was that? Before we knew anything about Islam, before we knew anything about Christianity, before we knew anything about all these other faiths that twist folks up, before we knew anything about all of that, what was this faith that existed before Noah ever came on the scene that was on this continent we now call today Africa? And what kind of faith did this guy Enoch have that he believed so heavy that he walked straight into the kingdom of God? That's how deep his faith was. He just bypassed death and went straight on. So what kind of doctrine was that, right? And so that began to shape my doctrine. And then as that shaped my doctrine, it began to shape my practice, orthopathy. How do I practice this? Do I just speak it with my mouth, but it ain't in my life? Do I just believe it with head knowledge, but it really is not exemplary in what I do, right? Because I want to walk straight in. I want that kind. I don't want to die. I want to walk straight in. So what kind of faith, what kind of walk, what kind of life is that where you can walk straight on into glory, into the kingdom? So that's practice. And then what are the experiences behind what you practice? And as a kid, of course, the Bible says a double-minded person is unstable and inconsistent in everything that they do. And so it's one thing to know something, it's something else to do it. It's one thing to know doctrine, it's another thing to practice it. Because I knew it, but I wasn't practicing it. So therefore, the experiences that I was getting wasn't matching up. So I wasn't getting the experience of what I believe because I wasn't practicing what I believe. It wasn't until I began practicing it, I began experiencing different experiences. And that's what orthodoxy is. What do you believe? Orthopraxy, how do you practice what you believe? And then orthopathy, what are the experiences behind what you're practicing? And are your experiences good? Are you really living what I believe is called the abundant life now, and then the kingdom life that's coming? But are you experiencing that overcoming victorious abundant life now, not broken down, barely getting by, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for the carry me home life, but the true abundant life? And so that's what Dorian and I were talking about earlier. Orthodoxy, what do you believe? Orthopraxy, how do you practice it? And orthopathy, what are the experiences behind what you practice?
Fire.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
It's
gonna be good.
So any thoughts, immediate thoughts for Tim?
Excitement.
It took me a minute, again, and it's a daily thing though. I'll be 64 in July. I'm 63.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I've been around, I've seen 6 decades of this world going in circles, right?
Yep.
And I saw 60 decades of me going in circles, right? And so this ain't something that, occurred overnight. This has been a lifelong transition of experiencing, what I believe the Almighty wants us to experience, but I never began to experience it until I began to practice.
Tim, are you a Christian?
So that's a good question. Do I believe that Jesus, the incarnate Christ? Yes. Do I believe that he's the God, the Father, God, the Son, who came into this earth that he created and ultimately sacrificed his life to reconcile us back to the Creator? Yes. Now, I'm careful how you ascribe that, because depending on who you talk to, they may perceive that differently, you know. In fact, if you really study it, the word Christian was a derogatory term used toward the believers of Christ in Antioch. Christ never even called Christians Christians, but it was a like calling somebody the N word, or some other derogatory connotation. That's how it was scribed. And so you got to be, because again, going back to orthodoxy, what Christian? Because there's all kinds. There's God in Christ. There's two C's in the Baptist. There's all kind of denominational doctrines that say they follow what we kind of understand, but they don't. Word of faith, not Christian. Mormonism, not Christian. Not Christian. But we all, so I'm careful when I say that. But do I believe in the incarnate Christ, who was co-equal, co-eternal, and co-efficient in the Godhead before the creation of the world? Yes, I do.
Yep. So watch
I believe
this.
that with all my heart.
Zach,
I knew it was coming to me.
we was on the pregame show.
Are we frozen?
No, I'm telling you, because you said something that is super like spot on. You said, what the hell is Orthodox?
Right.
So elaborate
can mean
on that. And
something to me.
what does that mean for you?
Well, based on what he just explained, I mean, it couldn't have come across any better.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about, like I said earlier, for me, I mean, I wanted to say the average person, but I can't speak for other people. But when you hear Orthodox, you immediately think religion.
Mm-hmm.
To me, like I lived in the East Coast for a while, and when somebody says Orthodox, I go, oh, Orthodox Jew, Orthodox Christian, or religion. But it's also a way of life. So I'm trying to, let me think about my words here. So just to let you guys know where I am at, I'm not religious at all. I'm Buddhist. But I heavily believe in religions and spirituality for people, because people need to have that uplifting spirit in themselves and something to believe in. That's my belief. Now, when it gets back to Orthodox, like he was saying, yes, it is a belief. How do you live by that belief, and what do you do for it? So for me, as a Buddhist, not religious, I'm still what you could say as an Orthodox Buddhist. I live a certain way of life as my belief to the fullest that I can from my belief. And what I do is I help people and help the way of life, and we revolve around the earth, because what I believe is that when I die, my body goes back to the earth, and not to jump around, but a lot of religions are pretty the same. They all have the same values as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion. So being good, doing well unto others. How do you get to enlightenment, which is what, as the Buddhist calls heaven, enlightenment, finding enlightenment. My brain is going somewhere else, because he talked about the Book of Enoch, and boy, we could go on for hours like that. I love the Book of Enoch. I don't know. I think that's the best way I can explain it. It's tough. I mean, I can only explain it for me.
I have a question for you, sir.
Yeah. Please. I need.
So
questions.
when you say you're an Orthodox Buddhist, so that means that you practice and believe, and say, like, you labor, you meditate,
Yes.
you do all of the, I guess, the requirements, that are called for.
Yes. To give you an example,
Can you tell me what some of those are?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. So it's winter up here. I have a wood stove. We burn wood comes from the tree comes from Mother Earth. Before I cut down a tree, I will thank the tree for what it's about to do. It's about to provide warmth for my family and myself. I will thank it for living and becoming a tree so that it may provide warmth for me. That's my spiritual way of thinking something that I'm going to take that's going to give something to myself to help me. But also what I will do is I will also plant a tree in its place so that I may keep the revolving circle going. If you can see it, I have a yin and yang because everything is good and evil. We both have each other, but everything is a revolving circle. It kind of goes back to what brother was talking about. He's been around 60 years. He's seen this 6 times go round and round and round and round, but that's life. In the Buddhist circle, that's life. There's a start and there is an end, and the end is always the beginning. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does actually. I was just kind of thinking about it because I mean, I've known. I mean, I do have a small question. You said up here. Where are you? If you don't mind telling me, you don't
I'm
have
in
to
Washington.
Okay.
Oh no, not at all. I'm in Washington State, northern
Like
Washington.
that cold weather.
It's about 30 degrees right now. It's getting cold, and we have daylight right now for about, let's see, we've done this for about 17 hours right now, and it'll turn into 18 hours of darkness.
Wow. But yeah, the
Yeah.
reason why I asked was just because most people I guess say Buddhism is just a way to kind of, I mean, you know what I mean, a way
I
of
do.
kind of
I do.
not
And
really.
Buddhism.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's interesting because Buddhism somehow in society has become a religion. Buddhism is not a religion. It is a way of life. Now, it could be taken as a religion for somebody who can find all the similarities as religion, but then that's where I go to a lot of different religions out there, and they all have a lot of similarities. And one of the things that always disturbs me about religion is that a lot of people don't realize that. They'll just stick to their religion. But there are a lot of similarities. Now, you believe. I support anybody who believes what they believe because it's their belief. I wish people would see the similarities,
The quick question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because I like the aspect of it's a way of life. And when we're talking about religion, I can ascribe that because I studied Islam for a good while. And it's a way of life,
Sure.
Right? Religion of peace.
Sure.
Right? And so
Sure.
It's all a way of life. I think what we're doing when we even start talking religion,
Sure.
we just basically establishing which box we're going to talk about. That's all it is in a real way. The thing is, I want to ask you guys, what other ways do you see the word orthodox applying to some of the things that you do and how you think? Because Brother Tim laid out a couple of other supporting tenets of orthodoxy. Like he said, what do you believe? How do you practice it? And what's the fruits of it, basically? What are you getting out of it? So I would just easily go in a whole bunch of other directions about different stuff that I do that have those same principles attached to them. I believe this way, and so I move this way, right? You can change the wording up, but it's going to say the same thing. I believe this way, I move this way, and this is the result, right? So if I just put the word orthodox in there and say, well, hey, guess what? I'm an orthodox hustler. Well, what the hell is that? I got to now define it, but at the same, as soon as I define it, I could turn around and say how I practice it. and I could turn around from there and say, what is the result of my efforts? How I practice what I believe. So that was mind blowing for me when he said that. So I just want to ask y'all if y'all can come up with any instances that apply to your life that would speak to that.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
All right, this Benny, first and foremost, you know, I'm a believer of Christ, and you know, the brother was, you know, Tim was saying as far as like dealing with this picture, right? You know, it's like I'm big on imagery. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, he come up in New York. It's like, you know, everybody. I expressed that I did 23 years in the prison, and I study a lot of things. You feel me? Marcus Garvey, that's like one of my role models. You feel me? You know, Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, Ford Muhammad, Clarence the 13X, and it goes on and on. You feel me? So I study a whole lot of things. You feel me? And I just believe, like, as far as dealing with religion, like, you know, everybody got their belief system, you know what I mean? But it's like, it's like I know people that, you feel me, not religion like that, or, you know, but it's like the way they live is so pure. And then I know people that saying they religion, but it's like, they ain't living according to the Quran, or according to the Gita, according to the Holy Quran, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it'd be like a turn off. So it's like you saying, when you like Orthodox, like, what is Orthodox? Like, you know what I mean? That's why, you know, I'm not really getting it. Like,
Well, I got a question right here
yeah,
for Timothy, and greetings to everybody. I
yeah,
showed up a little late. It's John. So, and this is in regards to some earlier things that you said, and you know, you may or may not have the answer to this, but what do you think? What do you think a conduit is to bridge the gap between belief and behavior and action? Because, as you said, there's a difference between saying that you believe something and actually acting it out in real life. And I think it has something to do with faith, with regards to whatever it is that you're believing in is faith. But I want to know what you think it is, because you identified there's a problem there, or that you had that problem in your life at some point. But, you know, I just found that interesting.
You know, that's a deep question because, of course, from the faith tradition of, you know, Christianity, studying under the Baptist faith and message, not bound by it though, because then when I went to seminary, you know, I began to really broaden that scope, open that door, and really see. And what I saw as the distinguishing difference from just something that I tried to send to in my own intellect or mind was this power of a spirit called the Holy Spirit that is gift back to mankind. So what does that mean? I believe that mankind initially was created in a perfect state. I believe mankind lost that perfect state. I believe that a way was made to give us that perfect state back. And what leads us back to that perfect state is called a gift, which is the gift of the Holy Spirit. And to a professed believer, they now receive a power that's greater than me. And so I was not able to get delivered from cocaine in my own strength. I was not able to get delivered from pornography and that whole lifestyle of, you know, that I thought was cool, smoking the stogies and being in the club. I couldn't deliver me from that lifestyle. But once I began to believe that, one, my body's the temple of the Almighty God, and I had to question, well, what does that mean? So are you saying that there's ways I need to treat myself? There's ways I need to live. There's things that it can become an abomination or destruction to me. Once I begin to understand that, that's when I was like, I'm in trouble because I can't stop this. I've been doing this too long. This is part of my character. This is part of my hack. I just can't cut this out. So how am I going to do this? Right. And that's when I discovered I couldn't. And it truly is the power of God who now intervenes. And so, of course, there's a text that says, I've now been bought with a price. I no longer belong to myself. And so my purpose now is not for me, but I love that word conduit. My purpose now is to be a conduit in which someone who's greater than I can operate through to bring about his love and his joy and his peace and patience and his goodness and his kindness and gentleness and his faithfulness and his self-control. And so that conduit, in the short answer, is the Holy Spirit. God himself said, and he proclaimed it. He said that I'm going to pour out my spirit upon all men. At one time, he didn't do that. At one time, it was just the prophets. And he said that in a certain time and in a certain period, I only spoke to your forefathers through prophets. He says, but in these last days, I don't do that. Now I speak to you through my son, whom he has now appointed heir of all things. And the son says, I've done what I came to do. Now I'm going to give you the spirit so that you can continue this movement. You can continue this power. You can continue this thing. And so once I came to realize, one, I had to humble myself. And two, I had to begin to deny myself. And then three, in terms of the practice, I had to start practicing that. I remember when I stopped smoking cigarettes, I didn't cut it like that. I went from 2 packs to 1 pack to 1 pack a week to 1 pack a month. And then it got to a point where I'm doing 1 pack every 4. And then I'm like, I don't need this anymore. So it wasn't for me. Some people talk about they got slapped on the head and got, delivered from all of the ills that they were bound. That didn't happen to me. The same way I worked my way in it, I had to begin to work my way out of it, right? And I had to trust the power to give me the strength. Same thing with working out. I know a lot of us brothers, that's how I met Dorian in the gym. The same thing in there. You can't go in there and just look at the weight. You can't just go in and say, I'm going to get fit and just go in there and look at the weight. You got to do something with it. And you got to start where you start and begin to then experience something from that. And so the long answer to that is I do believe in the Holy Spirit of God. I do believe that the Almighty God, as a gift, gives us that spirit back. And so the glory that we once fell short of, he's now given us that glory back. And it's interesting because people say King of Kings. Kings is plural. And so I asked the question, well, who are the kings of this king? Who are the kings? And it's clear to me now. You are. You are. You are. You are. We are the kings of the king, in which he now wants to do supernatural things through, in which we can't do in our own mind. And so hopefully that answers your question. I know that's kind of long-winded.
But Brother Tim, I want to see if I can ask you a question and throw it back.
Okay.
Because we're talking about Orthodox. And you did share something a while ago when you were saying about the brothers living 900 years and this and that before we was even practicing or there was even mention or knowledge of what they call today Christianity, Orthodox, whatever you want to call it, right? So the question I'm trying to ask is, what was that? And was anything Orthodox about that? And I guess to sum up the question, to say, does being Orthodox even matter? Like, how much weight do we put on whether something is Orthodox or not? Because we already know history says these things have happened, right? So what's happening?
That again is another powerful directed question, because when you go back to before we knew anything about organized religion, the word talks about faith. By faith, Noah did. I mean, what did Noah do by faith? He built a vessel that nobody had ever done before.
Right. Wait.
He did that by faith.
So what? Look what Zach said. Your faith could be different than my faith. Whose is right? You get what I'm saying?
Now that's how do you know if you're? That's another great question. So and I try not to. I try to stay where we all are, even though I taught seminary. I taught seminary for 8 years. I got my master's, I got my doctorate, and a lot of that stuff is just big sounding stuff, but some of it is real. Some of it is real. And one of the things that's a test to know for me if it's right is three things that I apply to know if it's real and right. One is proclamation. The other one is confirmation. The other one is validation. In other words, if I proclaim that in 5 minutes, all of our devices that we have in our hands or watching are going to be suspended in air for about 2 seconds, that's proclamation. Now, you may look at me like I'm crazy. This brother's ludicrous. But we're going to wait and see if that really happens, right? Well, in 5 minutes, if all of our devices actually become suspended in air, that's confirmation that what I said was true. It would have to happen exactly the way I said it, no deviation. If it happens exactly the way I say it, that still does not pass the test. Somebody would then, like my wife or somebody's, boo would have to come in and see that and be like, yo, that thing is suspended in there. What is going on? Well, this brother Tim said in 5 minutes, these things are going to be suspended in there, and it's really happening. That's called validation.
Yep.
So it has to be validated by somebody who's not in cahoots with us, who they don't know anything that we're talking about. If it doesn't pass those three tests, I throw it out. So example, if Joseph Smith comes to me and says, I found gold tablets in the mountains of Smyrna. He may have found gold tablets in the mountains of Smyrna. That's proclamation. Show me the tablets. That would be confirmation. And then it would have to be validated by more than just me. Now, if you can't show me that, then that's just your word.
Hard to believe.
Just your word. And I'm not saying your word is wrong, but
Mhm.
you would have to keep that to yourself because there's no confirmation of that. There's no validation of that. And so everything that I do, everything that I study, everything that I believe, I look for the proclamation, I look for the confirmation, and I look for the validation. If those three things are there, then I stand on it. If those three things, if it don't fit, I gotta quit. I gotta let it go.
What was that?
Yes, sir.
So by proclamation, is that not faith?
Well, proclamation is spoken. So again, and I'm trying
Right,
not
but
to
it's
be religious, but there's a real
I know, I know. I was just trying to go back to what Dorian was asking because it's a very it can be very touchy, and everybody can always take it a different way in their own way,
right.
Which I love because I mean that just brings conversation. Okay, well, all right.
And again,
We're
you
good.
could take it back to the street hood level. When I was in the South Bronx City,
Oh yeah,
I believed that the
Boogie
only
down.
way I was going to get up out that hood was selling trade nickel and dime bags. I believe that. I believe that I'm going to have to go get it. I'm going to have to roll my joints. I'm going to have to go to school with my 30, 50 joints in my pocket. I'm going to have to, I had my whole plan on how I was going to operate so I didn't get busted. I had my whole plan on I can't keep cash on me and the dope because I knew what the law said. So I had my whole plan of working that thing out so that my outcomes would be no incarceration, right?
right.
So I had a faith that this was going
You
to
had,
get
you
me
had
up out of
faith
the
in
hood.
yourself of knowing
Plan.
what to do.
Right. So you're right. The way you operate and the way you move is based upon what we've been taught. Last week we were talking a lot about the abuses that we've all faced, and I really want to thank my brother. How do you say your name? Capley? Kapil, for helping us to really become transparent and begin dealing with that. Because see, all of us have been infected and affected by some dysfunction.
Sure.
And we begin to believe that dysfunction. And we
Yeah.
begin to operate in that dysfunction. And we begin to experiencing the manifestations of that operation. And I can admit it wasn't good. But
Right.
I believed it. I believed that's where I was supposed to be as a man. I acted upon it. And then I did the things behind it. But what I experienced based upon how I moved, I didn't like. I didn't like what I was experiencing.
You got a paradigm.
And so I had to say, wait a minute, I must be believing the wrong thing. I must really, and where did it come from? Did it come from my dad? Did it come from my grand? Where did that belief come from that's causing me to experiencing things that I'm really not comfortable with.
Right.
So it applies to everything that we do in life, regardless of what faith you have, regardless of what.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's an example right now, and people are tripping. I had to have a debate the other day because this big word anti-Semitism is being thrown up. And they're saying, listen, if you ain't for the Jews, then you're anti-Semitic. I said, time out, because what you believe is wrong. And let me show you why what you believe is wrong. Because the first time we ever heard of the word Semite is from one of the sons of Noah. His name is Shem. That's where the word Semite comes from. Then we have Abraham, who comes from Shem. He's Semitic. Then Abraham births two nations, one from Isaac and one from Ishmael. One is the nation of Islam, the other is the nation of Israel. They're both Semitic. One are the Arabians and the Middle Easterners, the other one are the Jewish people. They're both Semitic.
You bet.
Both of them are Semitic, which means if you are against either one of them, you're anti-Semitic.
Yep.
If you're against the Palestinians, you're anti-Semitic. If you're against the nation of Israel, you're anti-Semitic. If you're against any Arab, you're anti-Semitic, because they all come from the lineage of Shem, which makes them Semitic people.
Right.
So when we deal in this world today, we're dealing with a lack of knowledge. We're dealing with some big ignorance. And so people are practicing this ignorance, and they're experiencing the results of this deception. And we see it being played out right on the scale at every level, from the political levels. We see this level of deception being played out, and it's based upon what people believe, how they practice what they believe, and now the experience is based upon what they practice.
Hey, so Tim, look, it's fire, because what you just said goes back to the conversation that we having on a macro scale. We're looking at, when somebody say Orthodox, the person that's on one side of the conversation or the other is going to feel like they Orthodox and they right. They got a righteous indignation about, hey, you doing it wrong, I'm doing it right. And we begin to split hairs about whether I got it right and you got it wrong, or you got it right and I got it wrong. And so now that's going to cause a blood feud, and a lot of times because of the fact that we so zealous about what we say we believe in. Instead of, like Zach said, allowing each other to coexist and finding common ground, because we all supposedly, right? If I'm Orthodox about anything got to do with religion, 9 times out of 10, I'm actually trying to get to the Father. I'm trying to figure out, like the ancestors did, like you said, when they was living 900 years, right? I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to get dialed in to that faith, right? And figuring out what's going to get me there. But in the meantime, I allow other things around me called distractions to stunt my growth and take my eyes off of the ball. Because now, instead of me having my eyes focused on him, I'm sitting there worried about whether or not you believe I'm doing it right or not. Right? So the whole purpose of the conversation was essentially leaning in the direction of, how can I begin to ask questions that's going to allow me to discover who the hell I am? Why do I believe what I believe? Do I stand on it? And Tim, man, he put fire up under me today when he put the orthodoxy out there, because the man is so astute that it was no way for me to misunderstand what he was saying. That's why I said, Tim, kick us off in this conversation, because the real thing of it is, guess what? I love that brother, man. You know what I mean? He 100 with me. You know what I mean? Just like I got love for Zach in the same way, because he 100 with me. But at the end of the day, I gotta be 100 with myself and my understanding about the Creator, and stop messing around with all of this foolery and splitting hairs. So when I say Orthodox, I look at it as you can apply it to a whole lot of other stuff in your life. It's just allowing yourself the opportunity to ask those questions. If you don't ask questions, that means you ain't, it's some answers you ain't getting. You know,
You don't ask
I'm
questions,
gonna
you'll
leave it
never
alone with
learn
this.
anything.
I always say,
I would,
hold on. I always say, like, tell my kids, you in school and the teacher's telling you what they want you to know. you're gonna learn way more about asking questions, because them questions ain't what the teacher probably prepared to even tell you. So you're gonna find out, one, did the teacher know it? Two, I might find out what I'm actually asking about. So you exponentially grow because you ask them questions. Don't refuse that same childhood process that's applicable to your kids to apply it to yourself. Ask questions. Get closer to the truth. And then guess what? It might not apply to nobody else. They might not even damn care. But how do you feel? What up, Caps?
Yeah.
All right. So Kapil, so I've been like this last year, I just got sober. So I've been working a program. The way I grew up in my household too, like I was like my parents are Hindu, and I grew up going to a Christian church too. So like I believe in all of that because spiritually I was involved in different ways of living because I've had friends that understood me and their families understood me by growing up in this country, and then my parents that were from another country that lived, you know, with this different religion. Um, you know, and I took both qualities of the best things out of those religions, and I used it with me. Um, but I still didn't have an understanding when I was in my addiction because you know, I always thought I was right. The ego was too big for my, you know, for me. I was hard headed, didn't want to listen to people. But when I got sober and everything started to clear out, and I started working the program over in AA, and like that kind of hit me when it said, you know, to give your will to the God of your understanding. That made sense to me because it's not about your understanding, it's about my understanding of who my creator is. Because what I've noticed is that my life has completely changed now because I do my prayer and meditation, and when I do the prayer, I ask for you know the answers, and I get them, and then when I do my meditation, I get the phone call from God where He tells me what it is, and I follow by faith and not by the sight. And once I've been doing that, my life completely is changing as it goes. And it's not just me; it's like everyone around me that I've explained that to them, saying, "Hey, I can't tell you who your creator is. Only you can tell yourself who your creator is." And which I loved about this program because I was working with this church early in this program because I was trying to get a couple sober guys living in my house. So I was working with them, helping. They were going to help me find the people, but they were a church. So, and I was also, my parents are Hindus and they're spiritual people. So we have our, you know, our religious stuff all around our house. And, you know, they came to our house and like, you know, some of them pointed out like, hey, you know, that's not, that, what did the pastor say about that? And like that kind of, you know, that really just offended me because, you know, to me, how does that person know who am I? Who is he to tell me where God is? Because from where I'm standing at, I'm the one who's doing the work and helping these people. And here that person is trying to guide me without him even actually putting a person in his home. Do you see what I'm saying? And I'm like, and then it kind of was like, wow, like, you know, I didn't know that you guys were going to come here and start checking boxes over here. But like, to me, that really offended me because like, I believed in both too. So it's not like I didn't believe in any of, but when someone tries to control us, like what they've always done, it's modern day slavery, all that kind of stuff is control. It's all control. People want to control people. And that's where I've came across is that I'm not going to be the one telling people this is how you find God. I'm going to tell them this is how I found God. Try it. If it doesn't work for you, try a different way.
That's it.
Here, here.
That's it.
I
call it.
want to chime in on that, man. First of all, I'm proud of you, brother. You're doing good. Secondly, I mean, that's kind of how I was. I mean, way back when, I mean, I was baptized. I was a born again Christian. I did the whole church thing. And then, you know, not to go against religions, I'm just going against the church where I was at. but I found that they were shoving it in people's faces. This is the only way to live. This is what you have to do. There are no other gods, blah, 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 and give me your money. And I was like, I'm out. That's not faith to me. That's not happiness. And then, when I started listening to my father's teachings of Buddhism, and I went, man, that's great. That's for me. So I'm glad you found your own way, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could chime in a little bit, just so I can get a little word in.
Yeah, man.
Yes, I was in Baptist church for 4 years, and I ended up leaving. I too went to the AA program. After church, I was hitting the liquor store. But what I really took from the Baptist church was that you don't have to work. Jesus already paid the price on the cross for our sins. And that's the difference that I've seen between all the other religions, is that there's no works involved in this. It's just believing in Jesus and having faith. And that's what stood out to me. So I didn't have to go knock on doors. I didn't have to keep going to church to be a good Christian and wear the button-up shirt and the tie. And I just had to have good faith, believe what he did, his sacrifice for us. And and I hold that. So so my belief is that, the way I practice it is that I wake up in the morning and I pray. And the fruits of that is just, it's not my will, it's God's will. So it's pretty simple, but it's been working for my life, and I've been sober for like 30 days now. And man, life is good, working out, have a little money in the bank account, making some amends at work. So everything is going good.
Fire, bro. You got this.
Good for you, man.
That is fire, because the greatest attribute of what I believe is love thy neighbor as yourself, regardless of where they're coming from. I don't care if it's a bum on the street. I'm not going to disrespect that bum. I've learned I'm going to love people the way I love me, right? And there was a time I didn't love me, and hurt people. So when I was going through my dysfunction, I was going through, my little pity party, I'm treating people the way I felt I was treated, and that wasn't good. It was all bad. It wasn't until, and I like what the brother said, I discovered a God who loved me so much, and that's the scripture we all hear, John 3:16, for God so loved the world. He doesn't say, I so loved Christians, or I so loved brown people, I so loved Black people, I so loved Westerners, or I so loved, he said, God so loved this entire world. While we were still dead in our sin, he died. It's what he did. And once I discovered that even when I was sinking deep in my sin and my junk, he still loved me. And not only did he love, because see, it was hard to identify with that when you're coming up in a world of hate. And especially if you got a lot of abuse, especially if you got a lot of male abuse, it's hard to imagine a loving Heavenly Father. You know what I mean? But once I understood that true, and that's why, I was bound up in drugs and alcohol. It wasn't that, I didn't see myself as an alcoholic. I didn't see myself as an addict. I was just self-medicated. And what was I self-medicating? What kind of pain was so deep that I had to self-medicate that pain and feel good now, thinking, now that I either, swallowed that old gold or swallowed those 4 shots or now I'm feeling better. But the truth of the matter is all of us can attest to it. Once that's gone, that pain's still there. It didn't go nowhere.
Numbed it. Just numbed it.
It was just waiting for your mind to come back. And it was sitting right there. And so once I discovered that, it's not about me. It really is not about me. Once I discovered it was not about me, and that I am his workmanship in which he created to do good works. I'm not saved because I worked it out. He worked it out. But because he worked it out and gave me life, now I can do what he's now called me to do. And greater is he that's in me than he is in the world. See, this is a whole nother dynamic of belief that transitions and transforms a person from thinking that, like you said, we got to do this thing. No, we don't got to do this thing. We get to do this thing through his power. It's not a got to, it's a get to. And that's the liberating part there. I don't got to this bad English, but I ain't got to do nothing. But I get to do all things because of his power. That's what's liberating. It's not a got to, it's a get to.
So you feel like it takes the willingness to acknowledge that before you can even get started.
You better, because see, it don't go away. Those of us who, and I don't call myself a recovering anything. I'm delivered. I'm free. But I also am wise enough to know that there's an enemy out there who hates me. He came to kill, steal, and destroy my life. And that enemy is on his job as long as he's allowed to roam this world. And so I have to know that, listen, if I get out of fellowship with brothers, letting iron sharpen me, if I get into my own little island and isolate and seclude myself, guess what? That's going to come back on my life. There's no doubt about that in my knowing. So I got to have a hedge of protection around me. I got to have a hedge of accountability, and I got to have brothers who's strong enough to, even if, now I've been clean now 20 years. You know, I got my deliverance 20 years ago from heavy duty stuff. But I got an accountability around. That's why I love Dorian, because see, iron sharpens iron. Cotton can't sharpen iron. I got to have a real brother who's going to say, yo, Tim, you slipping, bro. If I need to come over there, then I'm coming over there. See, and if you don't have that, because there's going to be a weak moment, there's going to be a slow time, there's going to be that time when that test is going to be so heavy, and you're going to need something greater than you that's going to be around you to help encourage you not to go do that. Because we all know what relapse is. We all know what that is. And I don't care how many days you got walking in victory, 30, 50, 40 years. I've known people that sank back in the bottom after 50 years. Why? How'd that happen? Right? And I'm convinced it's because you get out of fellowship with real men. You start becoming isolated, and that's where Satan wants you. And he'll take you out in isolation. He will take you out in isolation. That's a dangerous spot to be. And I don't want to be there no more. So I don't stay isolated. I stay accountable to my wife, 36 years. I stay accountable to my boys. I got a 36-year-old, 34-year-old, 23-year-old. I got two 41-year-old daughters that I had before I met my wife for 36 years. One just found me, the 3 days before Father's Day, born in Germany. Her mom was German, and that's a whole nother dynamic that's hitting our marriage right now, but God's showing us how to walk through that thing. But it's a fascinating thing when you know you're not alone. That's the key. When you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
You got something, Zach?
I do. I actually want to say something to you, based on what he was talking about when he was talking about accountability. I mean, that's one thing that I think that's the best thing that I ever learned from you personally, was that I think on my end, that's what always made our friendship grow, was you taught me that I need to be accountable for my shit. And anytime, I mean, Dorian and I had some moments, but boy, I'll tell you what, when it was due on me and I needed to be accountable, he was the only one there that taught me that. And man, I love him so much for that, because it's taught me so much, and it's led so much in my life after, is just learning on how to be accountable. And if you can do that, shit, man, you can do anything. Accepting the fact of your mistakes and being accountable for your responsibilities and accountable for your mistakes. I mean, you call that faith, you can call that God, you can call it whatever you want to. I call it just one hell of a friend teaching me a life lesson. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because he was talking about that, and all I could think about was you.
Right on, bro. Right on.
That's what's up.
So yeah,
I want to hear. I want to hear from my brother down there, David. David, our new brother, David. What's your position? What's your stand?
On orthodoxy.
On because that's the topic.
Okay, well, my stance is the type of person I am. I'm very, very, very straightforward. If it says do, then do. If it says do it this way, then do it this way. There is a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. I think it's pretty interesting, orthodoxy, orthopathy, because when I was young, I really wanted to be a Christian. I mean, really wanted. I wanted to, hear God speak to me and talk. My name is David. Therefore, my dad's name is David. Everybody in my family, we're country. Everybody got names from the Bible. Everybody. So it's one of those, we all go to church. And I wanted to hear God talk to me. I thought I did everything right. I prayed. I got on my knees. I put my hands up high. I've read the Bible from front to back maybe 5 times. Tried to study it, just do everything. And I could never, ever, ever, and I guess I don't know. I never heard God talk. At least I didn't, because I thought it would be a voice, or maybe like my son or come to me. And in my life, I've just lived a very, very hard life, doing things. Like if you're a good person, if you try to do things right, it is not a good time for you. People take advantage of you. Like the reason why I think it's so interesting is because the belief or the doctrine, the thing that you believe, um, whether it be the religious aspect of it and the church aspect of it, and then acting out on those doctrines, which I did, and when you see others around you, so we used to go to church so much, but it was hard to be able to kind of believe in it after I became an adult, because most people that say that they are whatever they say they are do not follow the things that are in the doctrines at all. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, kind of is this a real thing? You know what I mean? I mean, at that time, I kind of believed that, the camaraderie of the church was the most important aspect of, or I guess um, the religious aspect wasn't as important as the church in itself. It wasn't until years later that I came to realize a close personal relationship with God is really the only thing that's important in that situation. But it took a long, long time to learn. So I don't know. I guess I'll sum it up by just saying I went through a long time trying to be a Christian, trying to do all of the things right, and I didn't get any of that stuff right. Um, so the biggest part, I believe, is the orthodoxy, which is the doing good aspect of it, the action. I still try to do good and be a good person, do right, um, as if I am a Christian, but I can't say I am a Christian because I don't believe I have a close and personal relationship with God, even though I do believe in Him. I don't think He's ever talked to me, at least not directly.
Damn.
Anybody else want to respond to that before I say anything?
Yeah, I want to get in there, man. That's what we doing here. That was the whole reason why the topic was so profound to me, is because I know we all searching. I know when I came to the conclusions that I came to, and now after years and years and years, I'm okay with saying it out my mouth, because I was scared to confess, or say anything outside of what everybody else expected me to be doing. If I said I'm Christian, if I said I'm Muslim, but at the same time, I said, how is it going to be a double standard if I'm seeing you sit up there saying this what you is, and you doing the exact opposite of what you say you're supposed to be doing yourself? It don't matter if you're the preacher, the pastor, the deacon. It don't matter who, if you sit on the deacon board. it don't matter. The imam, whoever, muezzin, don't matter. So I had to now draw back, just like kind of like you saying, with all the knowledge and understanding that I have, and Kapil said as well, find a God of my own understanding. Because I know him to be real, and I know him to be true. I just know we muddy the waters with all these different names that we say we're gonna call him. Right? You can call him, I don't think he ever said, hey, this is my name. Now you got books and doctrines and writings and all the rest of that, that's fine. But going back to what brother said about the 800, 900 years old people, what was they calling God? They was just doing what they supposed to do. They was getting that thing done. So I feel like the faith walk, like they said in the cakewalk, the faith walk is based on you and how strong your convictions are. It ain't about me selling you my religion, right? And that's where we get all messed up, because we get holy roller and high on ourselves and think we gonna tell everybody this because we realize something that everybody gonna eat it up like new sliced bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go right back into the spiral, put ourselves right back in a conundrum, right? So, but just saying, for this call, I want to appreciate everybody for being here, because I honestly I pour out a prayer, honestly, over everybody on this call, that you receive God and express him the way you receive him and the way you express him, right? I just pour that over you, because once you find that personal connection that was spoke on a little while ago, it's unshakable. Can't nobody tell you nothing. Like me, can't nobody tell me nothing. I don't have to tell you I'm Christian, Muslim, whatever it is. But when you see my hands at work, you gonna call it whatever you want to call it, but you ain't gonna say that's some bullshit. It's gonna be more closer to the truth of some type of connection with the creator that you're gonna acknowledge before you just say, oh, this joke on some BS, whatever it is. You gotta be trying real hard. You know, so now I'm done with that. Go ahead, Zach. We're gonna wrap it up.
I know. I wanted to add something on what you were saying. Not being a man of God and being Buddhist, I did want to express that, and to back you up on that one of the common things that I always found in learning about different religions was, people forget that faith is yours. Your faith in your God is for you. It's not for you to try to prove to other people and I need acknowledgement. No, that's for you and your spirit. That's it. I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, drop the damn mic, Zach. People do like this.
Can I?
Hey guys, thank you. God bless me, man, today. Appreciate it.
Hold on, he wanted to say something.
Who that?
David.
He wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to say, I guess one more thing about it. Maybe how will I say this? I guess the thing I want to say is the reason. How to formulate it? I guess from what I said earlier, the thing I wanted to say was, it's not that I don't believe in God, because God never said anything to me. You think it's like a TV show where someone says something to me. The thing that makes me upset or angry about the entire thing is I've been touched by God, so I know how it feels. When you have the feeling of God on you, but just once, and then when you want to have that feeling over and over again, and it's almost like denied you. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but essentially, when you get that feeling, it's almost like a feeling of you're living your life right, you're doing the right things. And if you don't get that feeling again, then you're almost forsaken. I don't know. Yes, that's it. I'll just end it there. Almost like an anger, I guess. I don't know.
I get it.
I totally get it, and uh, I would encourage you with these words. You're on your way to freedom. I know we're closing out now. I've been kicked out of 3 churches, taught seminary, got a doctorate, got a master's, built a church from the ground up. 5 months later, they sold the building on me, had to go. God used all of that to set me free from the bondage. I chased all of that and went to the highest levels of it, went to the conference, went to the conventions, went to the state. And I'm like Paul now. I consider all of that donkey dong. And I now consider Jesus Christ crucified, period. All the rest of that, and I did it all, the whole gamut, the entire gamut. And I thank God for those experiences because it set me free. That's bondage stuff. Religion is bondage stuff because it's man's attempt to find God, and we can't find God. He came and found us. We can't find him. If you could, what kind of God is a God that we could find? What kind of God is that we can find him?
Yeah.
He came and found us. And the rule is he speaks to us through his word. The exception is he speaks to us audibly. Now, can he? Has he? Yes, he has. But the rule is he speaks to us through his word. And he speaks to us through other brothers. This is one of the most powerful Zooms. And I've done this a long time. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's more truth and more transparency and more reality and more freedom spoken on these Zooms than most of the ones that you're dealing with people who think they indoctrinated in some heavy duty stuff. They're not free. This right here is powerful and this is free. And Dorian, man, I tell you, I keep your book right here. I keep reading it every day. I keep encouraging to get into the book because knowledge don't set us free. Truth sets us free. And in that quest for truth, we got to keep fighting. Nah, that ain't it. Keep fighting. Nah, that ain't it. Keep fighting. Not get hurt by some of it. Because if you keep going, you're going to get to the truth. And it took, I'm 64. And it took me a minute. But I don't look like what I've been through. And I'm thankful for, this because this is real. This is true. So I encourage you, brother, man, keep on coming and speaking, being real, because that's where the deliverance comes from.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate that. I just want to thank Dorian for the invitation. I really appreciate I asked him about it when he sent me that message, the Zoom invite, I kind of got that yes, kind of so thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Let's go,
Hey man, come back.
Let's
We got lots to talk
continue
about.
to grow, fellas.
This is my first time at this group. This is really good stuff, man. I'm usually at work right now, but this is appreciate it. Wow.
All right, we'll catch you up. We'll catch
You know
you
how
on another one though.
Hey, Dorian, you know how you know it's good? You know how you know it's good, Dorian? Because an hour seems like 5 minutes. An hour is already gone. So
it's gone.
That's how you
it's
know
came and went.
It's like that every week, man. Shit.
Yeah. Hey, well, we're gonna
That's
wrap
how
it
you-
with this, man. Thanks to everybody for being on the call, man. Orthodoxy, proxy, orthopathy. What's the last one? Orthopathy. Pathy.
Orthopathy.
Orthopathy.
Like pathology.
Hey, those are something that I'm going to hold near and dear to me and rock with on into the future because I literally grew as a man because of that information. I'm just going to keep diving in and keep discovering, keep asking questions, and I implore and encourage you guys to do the same. With that, we out.
Is that?